You're on mute, Wally.
How's female hockey going there?
We just started in Columbus a girls hockey program through the AAA organization here. We do have actually a really good one up in Cleveland. Gilmore Academy. Sienna Conway runs it, and her brother Neil is probably like my favorite goalie person in the entire world. Like, he's really awesome. I will shout to the hills about how great he is and how he approaches things. Nedeljkovic in the NHL is kind of one of the kids that he was early on working with, and there's a few other players as well. So girls hockey is not well developed quite yet. A lot of our players will go out of town, like we've seen with Layla Edwards. I know like Maria Pape and a few other talents that have had to go out of state to really be able to find it. Most of them will go to the Pittsburgh Penguins elite program. So girls hockey, just from a number standpoint, it's really difficult to get it enough to create a team, but I know that people are working towards that.
Al?
Yeah, Wally?
Yep, girls hockey. What's the deal in the Massachusetts area?
It's going pretty good, I think, Wally. I think it's growing. In the U.S. in general, I think the female game is growing faster than the guys' game. But like our association this past year, we've always had a few girls, but not, certainly not enough to make a team, that kind of thing. So that last year we got engaged with Bruins, the Boston Bruins Academy. So they do a learn to play through the Boston Bruins, similar to what Greg was saying there with the Blue Jackets, through that NHL learn to play program. And they normally do one for boys and girls in the fall, and there's maybe 25-30% girls and the rest are boys. But they did a girl specific one last year. And I think we had about 40 girls show up to it. And between those new girls that were starting and the excitement that it kind of created, because we did a lot on social media with it, we attracted a few other girls into the association. And, we had a few that had already been on our travel program. So we were able to create a kind of a separate girls only team. So we've got an 8U now, a 10U, a 12U, a 14U for the first time last year. We're going to have it again this year. But we've kind of gotten a little bit creative with it in order to try and get the numbers where we came up with kind of a discounted registration if they registered on both the boys team and a girls team. So they got the option. They can either play just girls hockey or they can play girls hockey and then play in a boys team for, like a quarter of the price or something like that. I forget what exactly the deal is, but it was incentivized for them to, to play both. And we try to align it so that when we do our group practices that, for the 8Us, for example, the 8U girls will be on there with the guys as well. So it's it's not like too much for the girls to be on the two teams, but that's kind of where we're at. So we're still in infancy, I would say. This will be our second year. We were able to keep it together. Some of the levels are a little bit difficult. Like, I think for Bantams last year, we had 8 girls or 7 girls or something. So it wasn't a lot, right? It was barely enough for a team. We actually got a few from another association. We had a bit of a co-op with another youth hockey association. So we got some girls from there. And then they were pulling up the Pee Wee girls to play with them. So definitely, and I think the Pee Wees pulled up some of the squirts. Like, there was a lot of movement to try and make it work. But, the guys that were running it, they were really, really motivated. They were really engaged. We got a lot of moms involved. We started a Moms Learn to Play. So they've been kind of going out, and they did one in the spring, and then the women decided that they wanted to do a summer pickup skate. So they're doing that every couple of weeks. They get out and skate, and it's a riot. Some of them wear figure skates, and some of them never played with hockey gear, but they're having a ball.
Just to interject, Wally, I want to remind you that we have ice at 2:00 if you want to come and skate. You'd mentioned that at Crowchild.
I've got an arborist coming in at 1.
What religion is that?
Well, he's going to cut some trees down, I think. I'm looking at possibly selling my home in next spring, so I've got to get it up to snuff. Sammy, what Craig was talking about and Al, the numbers used to be, back in my day, my daughters played ringette. They didn't play hockey. And hockey teams you had to play boys because there was none. And all of a sudden now there's enough. And the dilemma is uh, girls are choosing to play boys hockey at elite levels. And in Toronto, how would you describe the hotbed of female hockey there in terms of the growth and the female, specific teams and competition and playing with boys? Is that an issue there? Are you aware of it?
Certainly. I mean, I guess it depends on how you verbalize issue, but it certainly happens. So I often get asked, because I grew up playing boys hockey in Winnipeg where there was no option. So I often get asked or cited, well, Sami Jo played with the boys, that must have got her there. Shannon Zavados played with the boys, then all the goalies must play with the boys in order to get to this level. So there is definitely the precedent set, and it's hard because now there is such amazing options for these girls. So my daughter plays U7. She hates it, but it's a mixed league. And the little girls that play in the league next year, they'll be travel teams. So then, they want to stay within that organization because this organization has produced a ton of NHLers. And, it is often, unfortunately, the dads that are like, this is better hockey. Well, they've never seen the girls locally either. We chose to play on this team because Jennifer Bottrell and Adrian Lamonaco were coaching the team, and simply parents, we wanted to see our friends. But moving forward, we will likely put her in a girls organization. But that's obviously not for everybody. So what I consult with parents is I say to them, ask your daughter, where does she feel most comfortable? Where does she want to play? Who are her friends? And make sure that you're making the choice not for her hockey development, but for her personal development. And I feel very fortunate because along the way, I had some great teammates that allowed me to play. Back in the day, if any one of the guys would have been just miserable to me, I probably would have quit. Now, that's not to say I didn't have misogyny and there wasn't some awful situations, but I always felt like they had my back. And that's not always the case for a lot of girls. A lot of girls plays boys hockey till the age of 10 or 11 and maybe just end up not liking it. So it is a difficult decision here because you have two really great options. And it's just really getting to know your daughter and her situation and what she will thrive in. Now, the OWHA locally will not pick players for their girls' programming. So any of the Ontario youth teams, Canada Games teams, or even send you to national team camps if you are playing boys hockey. So in Ontario, the female organization has made that decision that you have to make the jump at the bantam or midget level if you want to make any of these teams. I don't necessarily think that's the right thing because then you're tearing girls away from maybe their friends. Maybe they prefer to be with that group of individuals. So I don't know if it's right or wrong, but the more girls that play more girls hockey, it makes it stronger too. And so you don't want to necessarily lose your female players. I know in the Maritimes, similar to Al, like there isn't many players playing at certain levels. So you need them all to play there. And the top ones are leaving to go to prep schools. But if they stayed, they would have some incredible hockey teams. So, I mean, it's just it's at this point, we're kind of still in our infancy trying to figure it all out. But I think there's nothing wrong with playing with the opposite gender if that is what the girl wants. And that's simply ask your daughter.
Sammy, I've got a different opinion there.
Okay, go ahead.
When I, first of all, goaltending, when Zavados was playing midget boys hockey, I actually met with her and the parents recommending she plays girls hockey. And I'll give you the reason why. And this is because back in that day, Leslie Redden was one of two goalies with our national team. And she would practice with the men's national team and looked really good, according to Andy Murray, the national head coach. But with the female team, she looked like she was overreacting.
Right, but that's not the case anymore, Wally, because girls hockey would be good enough at that level. I agree with you that there was a time that was the recommendation. But I don't think that's the case anymore now. If they can play Oakville under 22 elite, or they can play midget AA boys, is there really that much of a difference when it comes to coaching, ice time, anything? Probably not.
That's a real good point. Now, back in the day, positional players, and even today, and I don't know, I'm not watching the game enough. Boys hockey, traditional, is 1-on-5 hockey, finish the check hockey, dump and chase hockey. Girls playing on AA boys teams became checkers. And it stifled their growth and development to the point where they may have stayed playing midget AAA and become role players and just played a guy's game rather than a possession game without fear in female hockey of getting your head taken off. So I feel that there's a point there when you're midget age and you're a forward or defenseman, probably in Bantam. Tom and I watched the Durham team. They had 6 underages on the Durham girls AA team. And they're all playing girls hockey. And I felt that of the 6, 3 of them were as good as players on the national team, U18 national team that you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
So I really worry about, sometimes it comes from like the fathers thinking, well, no, it's not good enough. But the game is different. I think the male game it's gone beyond the female game, but it used to be ahead of the female game. Now, the female game has got to take advantage of the potential that it has to play more creatively.
For sure. And back in my day, if I was to play men's hockey at that level, the guys would all be 6'2", 6'4". But now a guy that is 5'7", 5'8" can make it through. So the men's game is changing to allow that creativity and skill, which is, I think, where, depending on what the females' game style is, but that's sort of where I can see women still staying on that side. And interestingly enough, Wally, I don't know if you saw, but the Swedish Elite League just introduced body checking to their league. No open ice hits, but along the board hitting. And I think part of that was to combat with the gray area in women's hockey and refereeing. But it'll be interesting to see if that permeates to our level as well.
What do you think about that?
You know, what I love about women's hockey right now is it allows for all different body types to excel. And that's my only fear, is that if it goes in that direction, that it is becomes a bigger person's game. And I love that everybody can play right now. So, yeah, I mean, it certainly would make it easier to referee because it would take that away. But I think it certainly would change the game a lot and change who plays.
Yeah. See, I'm looking at USA's defense. They're all 5'10" and up, and the girls, and the same with Team Canada. They're all big.
Mm-hmm.
And Carla McLeod, who was chosen as the best defenseman in Torino, like, she's 5'3".
Mm-hmm.
And there may not be a place anymore, the way we're selecting players in North America, for that kind of hockey. You introduce the body checking, and I'm just looking at the NHL now. How many small skill defensemen are lasting in the playoffs? You know, there was a Duncan Keefe would be small, and he's done.
Bieksa.
Yeah. Yeah, Biesco was, but he was tough. But I'm just worried about girls just stopping playing with confidence, playing with fear of getting hurt, versus confidence to handle the puck, take bigger risks. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the same can be said for men's hockey too, right?
Yeah.
So,
good.
I agree.
Al, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just at our level, I think it's great. Both ways. I really agree with what Sam was saying about allowing the girls to decide, which they want to do, if they want to do boys or girls or both, right? Like I've got a half a dozen girls on my club team this season. They all played with me last year too. They all play on a girls team also. One of the dads that's one of my team parents is the coach on that team, so he's a great guy. But I look at these kids, right? And first off, the girls love playing with the girls, and they love playing with the boys, and they want to do both. And they should do that, right? Like they love that. I think it's great for the boys. Like when we, the families have gotten very close over the last year and a half. Hang out all the time, and you go over to somebody's house, and the boys are playing with the girls, and they're playing street hockey, and then they're in the pool, and then they're making bracelets, because that's something that the girls like to do, and like they're just kids. They're not boys and they're not girls. They're just kids and they're friends.
It
and they're
creates a
tight.
generation of men that are incredibly supportive of female sport in general, and I think that that's awesome to see.
100%. And I'll tell you, like, the one thing I will say is that anybody who, like, sometimes even at 10U hockey, sometimes there's a little bit of pushing and shoving, and anybody that goes near these girls is like, look out, because the boys are very protective of the girls still. And you see that even at this young age. But like, just to see them playing together, like, it's awesome. Like we went to a friend's house the other night, and we had most of the team there, and there's 4 girls and 4 boys jumping in the trampoline, throwing balls at each other, and then they ran around and played some game the girls like to play. I forget what it was called, Dead Man's Tag or something like this. And it's so nice to see. It's almost like there's really, I don't know. I really enjoy seeing how tight they've got, and the way that the girls interact with the boys in a positive way, and the boys interact with the girls in a positive way, and the way it all kind of fits together.
Sammy, I like your point that this will affect the generation of those boys becoming men and respecting women to the degree that they aren't respected today, and even the women's game today. Like, quite frankly, and I watched the national U18s, and I flip back occasionally to the NHL playoffs. And I actually have lost interest in watching the NHL playoffs because even though it's advanced and highly skilled, there's the stars that are rising and it's exciting. I don't enjoy watching it as much. I don't know why. I just don't. I really like the challenges of watching the female side and the gap close between teams. I'm really intrigued about what Canada's doing to compete with the Americans, what the Americans are doing, but the growth of the female game globally, like the women's league in Sweden. Sammy, I watch video. I thought they were playing unbelievable hockey, offensive hockey sense, better than our national team. When I watch games online, I enjoyed watching them. I don't enjoy watching our team play because they don't make plays very often. And scoring is really a difficult thing for them. So anyway, we've had a good chat about, I'm glad, Sammy, with playoffs and the fact you're broadcasting and dealing with the Worlds, and I'm looking forward to getting the analytics down the road, because I really think it's a very simple solution to improve what we're doing and to improve the game boys or girls by allowing them to not overcoach. Just don't be overcoached. Just let them learn from mistakes and don't overcoach. I think Greg said it best. Focus on offense versus defense. They're playing with fear of making a mistake and fear of not pleasing the coach. And really, Sammy, you've been there. The fear of not being a national team player someday. And that's one of the things that I think has happened when you invite kids at 16 to the camp and don't invite them back as a 17-year-old, and there's no communication. That's a tremendous, difficult thing to deal with in terms of affecting the psyche of anybody. Why am I not invited back? What are the specifics? Am I no longer in the picture? Should I bother to dedicate myself to the training that I'm doing? And I just think it's incumbent on leadership organizations to show the respect at that level for tracking these athletes, communicating with them, keep giving them tools to get better. Whether they make the team or not doesn't make any difference. Just communicate with them as best you can. So
Well, I'm watching this Sweden-Canada game here, and Canada's moving the puck way better than I saw them in the other game. Right in this part of the end of the second period.
yeah. Now, Tim Bothwell mentioned the same in the email, but when I watched the game, Tom and Sammy, I said they're playing Sweden. They got more time and space. And Sweden managed the puck pretty well too. We were bigger and stronger. They were pretty skilled. They had that big power forward, number 9, Sweden. But I didn't really see, they may be passing, but I didn't see them make plays like the U.S. did against them. They completed 3-4 passes to score goals going from one end to the other. They cycled and maintained offensive zone possession, went high-low. They just did things that you should be able to do, that you have to do against really good teams to succeed. You have to diversify your approach: direct attack, indirect attack, delayed attack, sustained attack, possession. Those things are part of the gamut of growth and knowing how to play the game. And I think we drive wide, we create a triangle, and it's a good triple drive triangle. I've seen Canada do that and make some great lateral passes. The fourth player hasn't jumped up as good as I would like, but they're doing some good things on direct attack. But after that, it's sort of like looking for an option and probably turning the puck over, maybe finding somebody, but no sustained pursuit and possession to the degree that the Americans are. Possibly against Sweden, it was quite good, but tonight's game is going to be, to me, this is the most critical game in the history of female hockey in Canada. Really,
that might be overstating it, because maybe the semi or the final might be, but
well, to me, we've lost to Finland. If we lose to them, what comes out of the reaction to that moving forward? Oh, I know.
But, they lost to Finland, but they dominated the game. It's different.
Yeah, they still outshot them 40 to
that's different
17.
than get dominating and losing. Sometimes the goalie beats you.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm trying to.
Because I think, Wally, I personally think they likely will lose tonight. So to me, the real important is how do they recover from that?
Yeah.
How do they do, what's the quarter, what's the semi, what's the finals look like, right?
Well, I'm not worried about the outcome in this. I'm just saying our game's 10 years behind. If we
Well, I
don't
think
realize
that will show tonight. The American players are so good. I'm excited to see them tonight.
well, it's not just talent, it's the application of the talent. I think we're just as good, but we can't display it cohesively together in competition. We're 10 years behind.
I also think North American goaltending is kind of 10 years behind Scandinavian goaltending. However, I do see some skill within the American net, so I'm excited to see them against good competition. Something that the Americans have never really had at the highest level is a goalie that can really truly win them the game if they need to.
Sammy, the last Olympics that we won the gold medal with, the team had fun. They played a better offensive game. Everybody played more. And they interviewed Marie-Philippe Poulin about what was her best hockey experience ever. And she said in the World Championships, when she was injured and they beat the Americans and played as a team, that's when she knew they were as good as the Americans. And that's what we don't realize. We're looking for the best players to win the championship. And
yeah, they also won an Olympic gold this time on really not strong American goaltending.
Yep, goaltending played a part.
Right, the Americans outshot them in that final game like 40-22 or something. So,
I'm just saying,
yeah,
we didn't play very well. We can play better, and we will play better if we let them play.
Yes, that's the key, Wally. If we let them, I like that.
That's right. We've got to let them, and that starts with the coaching philosophy and the ability to take risks and let the players take risks and grow in their confidence. So, well, it's been a great session. I've got some appointments I have to deal with here.
Well, Wally, definitely text me during the game if there's anything you see that we are not seeing, that either Cheryl and Kenzie are not seeing on the ice, or that I can say between periods.
Yeah, are you covering the Canada game tonight?
Yeah, the Canada game as well as the Finland-Sweden game at 5. So 5 o'clock Toronto time, and then 9 o'clock for the other game.
It's interesting, Sammy, because I didn't want to provide feedback because it's too negative.
Well, that's okay, because for me, it's on the NHL network also.
Yeah.
So what you are providing to me as a negative is a positive for the Americans. And so we have to be relatively unbiased because we are just as much there as here. So don't feel like if it's negative, that's fine. I'm never going to say anything negative about a 16, 17-year-old girl on TV.
Yeah.
Although I did call one girl out for not blocking a shot. But I try to make it so that their experience is good too. And when they're looking back and watching this on TV 10 years from now, they are not thrown under the bus. So
yeah, good.
So don't worry. I won't say Wally Kozak told me that period sucked.
Yeah. Well, you have broadcast really well because you've made comments of the other team when the Canada's played in terms of what they're doing well that I appreciate. And when you do that, I think when they're doing something well, we're maybe not doing something well. That's what I get out of it. Like they're playing the game as good as we are. I believe they're passing as good as we are. They're competing. They're not as big, fast, as strong, but I'm really impressed. Like it just goes back to Thomas and the Czech team and watching how they played against the States. That's the way the game has to be played, and we have to learn to allow them to play like that.
Well, it's awesome. Well, Wally, you have a million things you probably got to get done. So thank you for this, guys. And thank you for the input. I took lots of notes. And if my words sound like they came right from Tom's mouth, then they did.
Okay.